Avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. So we are continuing our discussion on this very important, maybe the most important school of Buddhism. It's called the Shunyavada. And before we proceed further with some of the...
Excuse me, Maharaj, you are muted and we cannot hear you yet.
Oh, we are muted. Please wait a minute. Our technician is coming. Sorry.
Most important school of
Please.
Buddhism is called the Shunyavada. And before we proceed further with some of the... Excuse me, Maharaj, you are muted and we cannot hear you.
I can hear. Okay, I'll continue. Okay. You can hear?
Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you so much. Om Stapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine Avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. So we are continuing our discussion on Buddhism, and right now we are focusing on the most important school of Buddhism known as Shunyavada, which was expounded by Nagarjuna in his foundational text known as Mula Madhyama Shastram. It's also called Madhyamika Karika. Before proceeding further, especially today I'm going to discuss some of the important verses from the 7th chapter. This text has got 27 chapters dealing with different topics, and there is one called Samskriti Pariksha, which deals with the conditioned, the analysis of the conditioned, the rising, the existence and the disappearance, dissolution. It is called, so Utpada, Sthiti and Vyaya of different experiences. Before we enter the text for a review, I shall try to explain some of the underlying tenets of Buddhism, which is common to all the schools of Buddhism, both the Theravada, that is the Pali tradition, who consider the Pali canonical literature as their foundational text, and also to other schools known as the later schools of Buddhism, which are known as Shunyavada, Vijnanavada, which are idealist schools linked to Mahayana, and Sautrantika and Vaibhashika, which belong to the realistic school. In fact, there are a number of Sanskrit texts on Mahayana system. And before we enter this text, Mula Madhyama Shastra or Mula Madhyama Karika or Madhyamika Karika is the name by which it is more commonly known. Nagarjuna's fundamental text is magnum opus. Before that, we have to keep in mind a few important tenets of Buddhism. First of all, the 12 links of Praditya Samutpada, what's called the inner dependent arising. Everything is conditioned and caused by something, and it in its turn becomes the cause of something else. So it is called the 12 link, which describe the cyclical nature of existence, or samsara, means birth, life, death and rebirth. So the first link is avidya, which is ignorance, means lack of our understanding of our own true nature. That is, we are not aware of the fact that the absolute reality is Shunya. So again, Nagarjuna himself makes it very, very clear that Shunya does not mean what we normally understand by the word in English language, nothingness or emptiness. For that, I shall just refer to one very well-known verse. It comes from the Karma Phala Pariksha, the 17th chapter, which we are not going to discuss today in very elaborate fashion. But there is one verse in the 20th verse of the 17th chapter, which is known as Karma Phala Pariksha, the examination of the fruits of actions. The verse is Sunyada Nija Uchcheda Samsarascha Nishashwatam Karmano Vivannasu Cha Dharmo Buddhena Deshitaha. So Shunyata, And again, the translators have a problem. They have to use the word emptiness or nothingness. That's because from the early days, the late 19th century onwards, Nagarjuna's Shunyada or Shunya came to be translated into the English equivalent emptiness. So Shunyada naja uchedaka. Shunyada is not annihilation. So when you translate Shunyada into the English word emptiness or nothingness, down the line, those who do not have any familiarity with the original text or Chandragiti's commentary on Nagarjuna's Madhyamika Karika, they may think that Shunyada indicates annihilation, nothingness, emptiness, merging into nothingness. So that is Shunyada nacha uchedaka. So Shunyada cha na uchedaka, nacha uchedaka. Mean it is not annihilation. Ucheda means annihilation. Samsarascha na shashudam. And this life is not eternal. Karmano dibanyaso. Again, the result of action and also action is imperishability. Mean they're bound to perish one day. And that's a doctrine, dharmo buddhena deshitaka. So that means Nagarjuna maintained that emptiness does not mean uchedaka, annihilation. At the same time, he maintains that the life process samsara is not permanent, not eternal, shashwatam. Now, in such a context, an imperishable action, that is, aviprasna karma, simply means continuity of life process, conditioned by karma until all these karmas bear fruit and lost on the way, and then you get nirvana. That nirvana implies liberation from this 12-link chain, which is called praditya samudpada. So what is that nirvana? Nirvana actually is a kind of experience which is beyond description, definition. So that's why when you go deeper, you find Nagarjuna was actually an Advaitin, but who called Advaita by a different name. So he seems to deviate from some of the statements from the Brihadaranyaka and Chandogya textbooks. But then when you read the post-Nagarjuna, our pre-Shankara Advaita texts like Gaudapada Karika, you find that we are going to find out soon today, that both of them use the same language, the same technique, the same dialectical method to establish a theory. So coming to subject. So these 12 links are avidya or ignorance, we don't know our true nature. Then samskara, certain actions, volitional actions driven by ignorance. So we are prompted into certain actions by our samskaras. We feel, one can very easily feel, we want to do certain things, but when we try to do those things, we feel somehow like a fish out of water. We want to do, but we actually try to do, somehow our mind suddenly feels there is a stumbling block. That's because we don't have the samskaras which are conducive to the actions that we want to do. You try to meditate, mind gets disturbed, but you enjoy doing everything else other than meditation because there are no samskaras, these formative forces within our system which are conducive, which are helpful, which are supportive of the action of meditation. Then vijnana, that is certain memories, awareness, consciousness, sudden feeling, oh yes, I'm familiar with these karmic memories which are linked to samskaras. The samskaras are also linked to vrittis, name and form. These either physical or psychological aggregates that constitute a being. There are 5 aggregates in Buddhist tradition. The Rupa, that is Vedana, then Samskara, then Vijnana and Samjna. All these. So one is Rupa is form, Vedana is feeling, Samjna is perception, Samskara and also Vijnana means our awareness of previous actions. So they are all combined together. This is the nature of human personality. Then Sadayatana, which is 6 senses, and Sparsha, interaction between sense objects and sense organs, and awareness that comes out of it. Then feeling, sensations arising from contact, which can be pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. They again are linked to previous karmas, samskaras and vrittis. You find the influence of Patanjali's system in the Buddhist analysis of the Praditya Samutpada, especially the description of the 12 links, because without understanding the spiritual psychology of Patanjali's concept of samskara and vritti, we won't be able to fully understand the actual implication of certain words like samskara, vijnana, avidya, etc. Avidya also is linked to kleshas, which is a term that comes in yoga system, Patanjali yoga system. Then trishna, and this is very important. The trishna is very important in Buddhist tradition, a kind of desire. It can be either a natural impulse, a desire for certain things, and it may be negative or positive. It need not necessarily be desire as we understand in the dictionary. It can also be in the form of some kind of an aversion towards something unpleasant. So which again avidya aspida ragodesha abhinivesha panchaklesha you find in Patanjali system. Avidya is the cause of everything. So also in yoga system and also in Buddhist tradition. And then this upadana, grasping, clinging to objects of experiences due to strong desire. And then the karmic process leading to future existence. That's something related to next life. So whatever we do, our actions, thoughts, emotions, feelings, ideas. That means not only physical actions, mental actions, feelings and experiences, inner experiences, which do not have necessarily any physical counterpart, no external counterpoints. Still, all of them can somehow influence our next life. Again, jati, birth, entry into new life, conditioned by karmic actions. If you want to know, get a clear picture, you can read these rebirth stories, Jataka tales of Buddha. How Buddha himself was born in different species. There is the most well-known story is the story in which Buddha was born as a monkey king who displayed a great sense of renunciation, self-sacrifice, just to save his subjects, the other monkeys. So you can find all these stories. So these samskaras influence next life. And gradually, as a result of this constant ascendance, the great Gautama Buddha was born. And then again, that's the inevitable result, Jara Marana, that is, which actually in a way indicate the inevitable suffering. That means it is unavoidable. So this is how the cycle of birth, life, death and rebirth happened. Now in this Praditya Samutpada, these 12 links show the path of the journey of samsara. It is not in a straight line progression, it is in a cyclic progression. In this context, samskara is very, very important. Samskara is the fuel, because avidya, samskara, vijnana, all these are important. But because of avidya, our mind get attached to things, and that creates trishna, and trishna again creates upadana, and clinging to certain things, and this becomes clinging to life as a whole. So we want to be born again and again, we want to enjoy more and more, but at that time we forget that enjoyment is only one side of the coin, the other side is suffering. So both these together is called suffering. So what is dukkha? Dukkha is not just grief. Dukkha is the unpleasant reality of going through these endless cycles of birth, life and rebirth. Now, in one of the interesting chapters, because that deals with this process of arising, then that is utpada is called in the text, sthiti or endurance and dissolving. All the impressions, feelings, all they emerge, they exist, they disappear, again they re-emerge. Now, Nagarjuna is trying to prove one important point. He says that this arising occurs only when it is caused by something else, by depending upon something else. There's a cause, there's a condition. And again, that itself becomes the cause of something else. It means everything in this world is empty of permanent, inherent or eternal existence. So that's an important point. Everything in this world is empty of permanent existence. So in that sense, it is called Shunya. You will find here in some of the verses that we are going to discuss today. In Gaudapada's Mandukya Kariga, we can put this in juxtaposition. Gaudapada says, everything in this world is by itself permanent, in the sense that everything is one reality. Sarvam khalu idam Brahma. Everything in this world, as Brahman is real, everything in this world as world is unreal. So, to give an example, think of that illustration, the rope mistaken as a snake. The rope as rope is real, the rope as snake is unreal. Snake is seen because of its similarity and color and the shape and the way the snake is lying on the floor. The rope which is lying on the floor, it is dark, semi-dark, there is not enough light, and the rope closely resembles a snake that we saw the previous day in a zoo or in a forest. So what happens is, we mistake the rope for the snake, some kind of a snake that we saw, not the same but something similar to that, because the same color and we don't see enough light, so it is lying in a curved form. Actually, Vedantic texts give you many more examples. That is, Sarpa, Jaladhara, Bhuchidra and Danda. That the piece of rope lying in the room can resemble not only a snake of the same color and size, but also a crack on the floor, or maybe some kind of curved stick, or a thin stream of water, because there's not enough enough light in this room. Let us stick to this rope snake analogy. Ignore the other three. Now, that object, the rope, is real as rope, but unreal as snake. That's the point. That's what Vedanta tell you. So, in that sense, the so-called rope is real. In what sense? Not as, again, please remember, in conversation this confusion happened, sorry. The rope is real as rope, but the rope is unreal as snake. You may also argue the rope is real because it is a rope. It was a rope all the time. Even when you mistake for a snake, it is a rope. After you have got rid of this wrong notion, it is a snake. Now you understand it's a rope because you brought light. Then also it's a rope. It was a rope all the time. So Vedanta will tell you it is always the rope. Now, if you go to Nagarjuna, what he tells is, the rope idea and also the snake idea both are wrong. He will tell you. Why? Because the rope is sometimes mistaken to be the snake. If it is really rope, why should we mistake it for a snake? So Nagarjuna pushes his negation not only to pratibhasika entities, but also to vyavaharika entities. So that's why Nagarjuna will tell you that the world is a dream, just like a dream. That means world objects are objects that we experience in waking state are as unreal as the objects that we experience in dream. Now this is totally opposed to any common sense. Nagarjuna will tell you. He says, the objects that we see in dream are now considered to be pure illusion, unreal, because we come out of dream. But he says, in dream, we experience that. And still we say they are unreal when we come out of dream. So how do you look upon the waking state objects? From a dream perspective, for a dreamer, he is going to sleep in San Francisco. For dreams, he has reached New York. From his perspective, staying in San Francisco is unreal. Living in New York is real because his dreaming has reached New York. Now we look upon dream as dream, and therefore we say dream is only dream. But that statement we are making only in waking state, not in dream state. So Nagarjuna says both are the same. Now the point is, if waking states are as unreal as dream state, then everything is an illusion. Then rope is an illusion, snake also is an illusion. That's what Nagarjuna says. So Nagarjuna won't agree with the pratibhasika, vyavaharika, or paramarthika reality, that degradation of reality. But Nagarjuna's Madhyamika uses the word Sanjita Satyam and Paramartha Satyam. He uses these two words. We will come to that later in the Madhyamika. Sanjita Satyam, according to him, is what we Advaitins call Vyavaharika, common sense, empirical things. And Paramartha Satyam means, according to Shunya. So what is the Shunya? The Shunya is an inexplicable, ultimate mystical experience. And from that perspective, there is no distinction between Vyavaharika and Pratibhasika. Now, surprisingly, this view is not very different from Gaudapada. That's the transition from Nagarjuna to Gaudapada and Gaudapada to Shankaracharya. Now, coming to Shankaracharya, about 200 years later, Shankaracharya says, you're right, dream objects are unreal, waking state objects are unreal. From what standpoint? Only from the absolutistic point of view, not otherwise. So long as you have not realized the absolute point of view, then there is what we call idaredhara veda, means inherent distinction. Because in dream, you can travel in split second. You can do things, undo things, you can make and unmake things in split second. It's a mental process where physical or sensory organs are not involved. You need not walk. You don't have to go and buy a ticket and fly to New York 6 hours in dream. You think you reach there. But in waking state, it needs 6 hours of flight to reach New York. So Shankaracharya, in this more complete, what we call a more realistic idealism, where he combines realism and idealism, he says there is a distinction between dream and waking states. He writes long paragraphs while contradicting the Yogacara philosophy, in which the Shunyavada also comes. In making a statement, there is a distinction, but that distinction disappears when you reach the highest experience. I can give an example. Suppose you want to get admission to a university and you have to get 100% mark to get that job or maybe the university admission. Now among your friends, one person got 100% mark. He gets admission. There are many others, some of them got 99%, some of them got 80%, some of them got 0%. So don't you think that there's a difference between the one who received 99% mark still did not get admission? We have to get 100% mark to get admission. There is an internal difference between somebody who got only 99% mark and another person who has got only 1% or 2%, 3%. There's a distinction. That is called internal difference. But so far as the admission is concerned, all are outs. All the 99 have to stand outside the gate of the university or the job. Only one person who got 100% mark can get admission of the job. So there's a transition between Nagarjuna and Gaudapada, and then there is a transition between Gaudapada and Shankara. When you come to Shankara, you find he also fully endorses his grand preceptor's thesis. Actually, Gaudapada was Shankaracharya's guru's guru, teacher of his teacher. Govinda Bhagavapada's teacher was Gaudapada. He completely endorses Gaudapada's view. The dream objects and waking state objects are actually unreal. But from what perspective? From the standpoint of the highest spiritual experience. From the standpoint of somebody who asks you the question, did you get that job or did you get admission to the university? If you get 100%, you can say, yes, I got admission. But if you got only 99.9%, you have to join a group of those who are not admitted. But still you have to admit that there is certainly a great difference between somebody who got 0% mark and somebody got 99.9% mark. Still did not get admission. So Shankaracharya says, for the highest perspective, they are the same. All the 99 are outside the gate of the university. Only one gets admission to the university. But then, within themselves, They can say, I'm smarter than you because you got only 80%, I got 81%, you can say. So that is a great point I want to make. Now we'll come to the subjects. We are going to discuss Samskrita Pariksha of this, that is the 7th chapter of Mula Madhyama Shastram or Madhyamika Karika. Some very, very famous verse. One is something that you already discussed earlier. Gaudapada to, rather Nagarjuna to Gaudapada. Nagarjuna belongs to 2nd or according to some scholars 3rd century AD. There are slight differences among historians. Maybe 2nd or 3rd Nagarjuna and 6th century AD Gaudapada. So Gaudapada says in his Mandukya Karika, Jara Marana Nirmuktaha Sarve Dharma Subhavataha Jara Maranamichandaha Chavandi Tan Manishaya. What he says is, Sarve Dharma Subhavataha. All the jivas are Subhavataha Jara Marana Nirmuktaha. They are devoid of birth, life, death and rebirth. Now, that is his thesis. Jaramarana Michandha Chavandi Tan Manishaya. The point is, Advaitins believe Sarvam Khalidam Brahma. Dharma here means Jivatmas. All Jivatmas are Jaram Marana Vinurmuktaha or Nirmuktaha. Because all Jivas are non-different from Brahman. That is Jiva Brahmavanaparaha. So if you take the view that everything in this world is non-different from Brahman, you are taking an absolutistic, holistic view. Sarvam Khalidam Brahman. Everything is Brahman. How? Just like if suppose you say, the rope is real as rope, the rope is unreal as snake. The rope is real as rope, the rope is unreal as snake. So, if you think all the jivas and keeping in mind that they are non-distinct from Brahman, then they are Jaramarana Nirmuktaha. They don't have birth, Ajam, Nityam, Avyayam, etc. Beyond birth, beyond death, beyond any of the changes. Because everything in this world is non-different from Brahman, from the highest Advaita point of view. As I mentioned earlier, the rope, as rope is real, the rope as snake is unreal. This world, as this world is unreal, but this world as Brahman is real. That's the essence of the statement in the, you can find the end of the Brahma Sutta Chatusutri Bhasha says, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. The statement itself is within Dvaita, but the experience that is indicated by the statement is Advaita. This idea I painted. Now, Nagarjuna's view is this. Jara marana dharmeshu sarva bhaveshu sarvada tishthanti katame bhavaha jara maranam vina. He says all that are existing. When all things that are existing are always of the nature of decay and death, that is jara marana dharmeshu sarva bhaveshu sarvada. When everything that is existing is of the nature of decay and death, then what existence are there without decay and death? Then tishthanti katame bhava. Then what is there in this world which is devoid of birth, death and rebirth? So everything is within the framework of pranitya samulpada 12-link chain, including the Panchaskandhas that you already discussed here. Because Panchaskandhas constitute the essence of human personality. So, Nagarjuna is taking one view in which he says everything that we can conceive of, empirically we can connect with, we can perceive, belongs to this framework of time, space and causation, what we normally call Vyavaharika, and they are of the nature of decay and death. So there is nothing in this world which is free from Jara Marana. And he he put his idea again and again. Just a few important examples I mentioned earlier just now. And to the end of the 7th chapter, there is a much more interesting verse which we are going to discuss now, which actually vindicates what we discussed just now. In the Gaudapada Karya, as I mentioned, he frequently makes a statement, Gandharva Nagaram. He indicates, Manodrishyamidam dvaidam yat kinjit sacharancharam manaso hi amani bhave dvaidam naivobodhiti. So, Manodrishyamidam dvaidam yat kinjit sacharancharam. So, whatever we see and experience in this world, things which are moving and unmoving, whatever we perceive, we cognize through this medium of subject-object distinction. Somebody is seeing, perceiving, cognizing, and something else is being perceived, cognized, and seen, subject-objects. Yat kinjit sajaracharam, whatever it is, either moving or unmoving things. Manasohi amani bhave naivam dvaidam naivobhalibhyati. All these are manodrishyamidam. All, so something very interesting here. That's also the transition from Gaudapada to Shankara. Shankaracharya makes a clear distinction between what we experience in dream and what we experience in waking state. But Gaudapada does not see any distinction. But he also makes a point in his own work that all these things are like city that we, in our fantasy, we may imagine there is a city up in the sky, which only a child's imagination. So a child walking the seashore, on the river shore, in the evening, the time of sunset, he sees the sky in the west, brilliant golden color. So he may ask his father, there is a city with so many, even Shankaracharya's commentaries, Gaudapada Karika Bhashya, he gives a long picturesque description of this illusory city up in the sky. But there are shops, there are places people are walking, people who are walking through the different markets. But all this, the child is in a fantasy. Now, Gaudapada says, everything in this world, dream objects and also what we experience in waking state, are just like Gandharva Nagara. Gandharva means something that is, by its very nature, it is inherently inconceivable or non-existent. Something, the moment you utter the word, it implies something that really can never exist. Panthyaputra, the son of a barren woman. There are many of these examples in the old books, Gandharva Nagara. Akasha Kusuma means a flower that there's a garden up in the sky and you are picking a flower from there. All these, the moment you utter, you are denying that such a thing ever exists. Now, according to Gaudapada and according to Nagarjuna, all those things are totally non-existent. Nagarjuna says, Yatha maya yatha swapno gandharva nagaram yatha tatorpadas tatha sthanam tatha bhanga udahrutam. He says, everything is illusion, a dream, just like the fantasy of a city up in the sky among the clouds. It's an illusion, a dream. Similarly, the idea that something comes into existence, utpada, to something endures or continues to exist after origination, after coming into existence, and something ceases to exist. All these are absolutely an illusion. That means this dual link is nothing but an illusion. But we understand that it is an illusion only when we practice the Ashtanga Yoga, and then the last of this, that is Samyak Samadhi Nirvana. When we attain Nirvana, then only we experience that all these things are illusions. In other words, Shunyavada is nothing but some kind of a transcendental spiritual experience, which as an experience is not different from Advaita experience. But at a philosophical language, we can see the distinction. That's why the similarity in language. Manodrishamidam dvaidam yakinji sajaracharam. Everything is mental fantasy, just like Gandharva Nagara. You are looking to the sky, you think there is a big city up in the sky. Similarly, you are looking in front of you, there is a house, there are cars, it's also illusion. But from what point of view? From the highest Shunya perspective. So that's why Nagarjuna says, we'll come to that later, that after transcending Sanchita Satya, we should attain Paramartha Satya. Paramartha Satya means the ultimate transcendental truth or experience. Sanchita Satya means empirical, common sense experience, like the Avakharika of Advaitins. So everything that comes into existence, existing and then disappearing and then re-emerging, all this is within Dvaita. That's what Gaudapada says. All these are illusions, can never happen. That's what Nagarjuna says. So practically the same. Jagrat and Swapna are the same illusion according to both Nagarjuna and Gaudapada. So we can see the evolution of philosophy. Shankaracharya, we should remember, emphasize again and again that Shankaracharya completely endorses Gaudapada's view. But between Gaudapada and Nagarjuna, there is an important point to remember. There is only a similarity in using terms and language forms while describing the impermanence or the illusory nature of worldly experiences. But when you go beyond that, there's an experience that is beyond description. And then there are some other very, very important. Sthidasya tadvat bhavasya nirodho novapadyate. Nastidasya bhavasya nirodho novapadyate. This is also the same. Disappearance of something, cessation of something that is existing for some time, that existed for some time, it cannot be supported, it cannot be true. Similarly, the cessation of an existence that has not endured, so something that has come into existence and then disappearing, it cannot be accepted. Similarly, something that has come into existence has not existed, that also cannot be supported. So practically you can find this use of language. That's the importance of this particular chapter. Idaiva sarvadharmanam utpado novapadyate tadvaiva sarvadharmanam utpado na nirodho novapadyate. So that is also from Nagarjuna. Idaiva sarvadharmanam utpado nupapadyate. Sarvadharmana utpadaka nupapadyate. The emergence of all these things cannot be accepted, cannot be true. Similarly, the cessation of all these things also cannot be true. Because there is nothing. So why do you talk about emergence of something? There is no emergence, then there cannot be disappearance. So that's why I first gave the description of Nagarjuna's philosophy. Nagarjuna is trying to explain a fact in clear language. The language can be highly confusing. You should understand Nagarjuna's philosophy first. Then read Madhyamika. Otherwise people can go crazy. If you try to understand, read one word and go to the dictionary, then another word, then there is no better way to go crazy. So one should understand the philosophy. Nagarjuna was a transcendentalist. But he approaches that highest peak of his philosophy from a negative perspective. Shankara approached it from a positive perspective. Only a matter of perspective. That's why he says, when the rising of all these things is not appropriate, cannot be accepted, then the cessation or disappearance of all these things also cannot be accepted. Yadaiva sarvadharmanam utpado na upapadyate. Tadvaiva sarvadharmanam utpado na nirodho na upapadyate. That's it. Actually, the term is taken from Gaudapada. Gaudapada says, na nirodho, na chorpatti, na baddho, na sadhaka, na mamukshu, na vai muktaha ityesha paramartha. Of course, Gaudapada says there is no cessation. Why? Because there is no origination. Na nirodhaka, no cessation. Why? Because naja utpatti, no origination. Na baddhaka. Nobody feels that there is a need for getting liberation because there is no bondage. And if there is no bondage, then there is no spiritual pursuit either. Na mumukshuhu. There is no one who is looking for, who is seeking liberation. And there is no one who is liberated. This is the ultimate truth. Now what does it mean? Liberation is not something that we attain, that we achieve. Liberation is the reclaiming of what we already are. Reclaiming. Suppose for some reason we forgot our own name, then we suddenly remember. We don't say, oh, I got a new name. We don't say that. We are only rediscovering what is inherently our true nature. Again, from that perspective only, this verse makes sense. Not from an ordinary perspective. You cannot tell anyone, you are already Brahman, so don't have to do anything. That can be problematic. So that's why Gaudapada's philosophy is the ultimate conclusion. But what Shankaracharya did, Gaudapada built a 20-story building and shouting something from the top of the terrace, come here. What Shankara did, he built a 20-story building, then he arranged an elevator system, he built a ladder, a staircase. So he told you, all right, now it's only an idea for you, not a fact of life. So first of all, you have to do some good karma. You have to do some good action, perform some good actions, do some basic spiritual disciplines, keep your mind calm and quiet, be good towards everyone. This is how you begin. That's how you step into the first, the first story. And after that, you can slowly ascend and reach the top. But there is no such description. There is no staircase. There is no elevator system in Nagarjuna. That's the idea behind. That's the only difference. He's shouting something. That's true of Ramana Maharshi also. But Ramana Maharshi, in real life, of course, he encouraged people to practice karma yoga, prayer, meditation, things like that. But Shankara, on the other hand, he built a complete intricate system. Built a huge building, Then he arranged staircase, a fire escape system, elevator, all arrangements he made. So it's only difference. That's why Nagarjuna's system, and see the close similarity, even the use of language. There's so much of similarity with regard to the terms, the language used by Nagarjuna and Gauravada. It's only just a transition. Only Nagarjuna said everything is devoid of any permanence. Everything in this world. Shankara agrees. Gauravada also agrees. But say there is something beyond all that. That beyond all that, Nagarjuna called Shunya. But remember, you have to remember very carefully, Nagarjuna very clearly says, Shunyada nacha uchcheda. Shunyada, emptiness, is not uchcheda, not annihilation, not total, complete nothingness. It only tells you that this samsara, this life process, is not eternal. It is perishable. So, that's the idea behind. It comes in Karma Phala Pariksha, very famous verse. Asutopi na bhavasya nirodho upavadyate na didiyasya shirasa chedanam vidyadedha. So, of course, before that there is one sadascha tavad bhavasya nirodho na upavadyate ekatve nahi bhavasya na bhavasya upavadyate. So, the 30th verse of 7th chapter is the cessation of something that's really existing cannot be accepted. Sadascha tavad bhavasya nirodho na upavadyate. Something that is existing after arising, that is utpada, then sthiti, existing for some time, then disappearing. That cannot be accepted. Sadascha tavad bhavasya nirodho na upavadyate ekatve nahi bhavascha na bhavascha upavadyate. Again, with regard to the identity of something, neither existence nor non-existence is appropriate. So there is neither existence nor non-existence. Of course, in other context, Nagarjuna goes beyond this and he excludes and negates all possible binary opposites. That is, Chaduskodi, we already mentioned earlier, which again is repeated in Gauravada Karika. That is existing, non-existing, existing and non-existing, neither existing nor non-existing. All possible, Chaduskodi, tetralemma we call. So going beyond all binary prepositions. So that's why he says, Asado bina bhavasya nirodho upavadyate na didiyasya shirasa chedanam vidyadeta. That's an interesting, not a very pleasant example. He says, the cessation of something that is unreal, existent, is not appropriate. Something that is not existing, the cessation of something that is not existing cannot be understood. Because these things are not existing, so how can they disappear? Again, then gives an example. Na dutiyasya shirasa chedanam vidyadetha. It's just like beheading a man again. You behead a person twice, It's impossible. First of all, there is nothing. Then how can you say it disappears into something? Nothing to disappear. So, the ultimate purpose is to use simple words. You can find Nagarjuna's language. Karika is very extremely simple. The philosophy is extremely complex. But once you understand what is driving at, it's very, very simple. That's why before we read Madhyamika Karika or Mula Madhyama Shastram, we should understand Nagarjuna's philosophy. What he's trying to say is, there is nothing at all in this world within the realm of our experience, empirical experience, that has got any inherent existence or identity of itself. It is caused and conditioned by something, and itself becomes a cause of something else. So this dependent origination, mutual conditioning, it points a finger to the fact that everything in this world is empty of essential or inherent existence. And that's what is called Shunya, and not annihilation, or what we normally translate in English as nothingness. That's not what Nagarjuna meant. So thank you. We'll have interaction. Question and answer. Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mom.
Yeah. Thank you.
David, good to see you. Please go ahead.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
I have, one question, but one specific and one not so specific. It seems like, why did they use such different language, number one? And number two, it seems like Sunya is another name for Maya. But I'm curious why they use...
Yeah. Now, somehow there is a problem with your hearing system,
like
not audible.
Why Shankara go to Nagarjuna? Oh, can anyone else hear me? Or?
Can you hear, Bobby?
Yes, I can hear David, but David, go ahead and repeat.
Please repeat what you said just now.
Maharaj can hear.
Please repeat once.
Okay. Why did they use different words? The Gaudapada, Shankara, and then Nagarjuna.
Yeah.
Why did they use different words? Like, for instance, Sunya seems to mean Maya.
Yeah.
Other words as well. You've mentioned that they just use different words, like for thirst instead of desire. It's like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. Now, first of all, Nagarjuna lived roughly 350 years before Gaudapada. And Gaudapada lived about 100 years before Shankaracharya. So Nagarjuna was, in Nagarjuna's system, he also indirectly refutes the other schools of Buddhist philosophy. Sarvastivada is called, Hinayana tradition, Sautrantika and Vaibhashikas. Among them, there were internal differences. Sautrantikas believed that everything is Bahya Anumeyavadina, means we can only infer things, not directly perceive. And the Vaibhashikas, the other school of realism in Buddhist tradition, mostly they depend upon Pali canonical tradition, they believe that everything has got a perceptive entity, means you can perceive. Of course, they all believe in Anattavada. Now, coming to Yogachara and Shunyavada, Nagarjuna was living at a time when he had to counter, in a way he had to interact with Buddhist philosophers who were different from Shunyavadins in their convictions. Sarvastivadins, especially the Sautrantikas, had their own views, which were different from both Shunyavadins' view and also Yogacharyans' view. And between them, the two schools of idealism, Mahayana, that is between Nagarjuna, Shunyavada and Yogacara, Vijnanavadins, they had also differences. So to understand Nagarjuna's system, you have to understand the philosophical landscape of his times. But it did not have much to do with Advaita. Nagarjuna must be familiar with the Upanishads because he was a learned traditional Sanskrit scholar, very great scholar. So naturally he was familiar. But again he was writing at a time when he had to emphasize his viewpoints. Frequently some of them were not in agreement with the views of Yogachara people, Yogacharyans, because they believed in some kind of a vijnana, some kind of a platform. See, chittam, so they believed a kind of all-knowing subject, a platform, and all other experiences are coming and going, floating. So there is a perceiving entity, subject matter, a subject. That they believed in the Yogacara Vijnanavada. It's called a Vijnanavada. But Nagarjuna even refuted that. So all these things are devoid of any inherent permanent entity. So it seems that Nagarjuna was trying to emphasize a kind of negative Advaita. Nagarjuna was driving towards Advaita, but he used negative language, negative dialectic is called. And even if you go beyond that period, when during Buddha's time, there were so many schools of philosophy, Yadrichavada, those who believed in, it's called accidentalism, those who totally opposed any kind of conditioning or any kind of cause or anything. During Buddha's time, there were many philosophers. So you have to remember that Nagarjuna had in his mind some of the views which he was not in agreement with. The views of Yogacharyans, the views of the Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas. So he did not have any Advaita idea in his mind when he wrote. And coming to Gaudapada, in Gaudapada you find some traces of influence of Nagarjuna. You find that. The style is very, very similar in many ways. The same language, same terms are used in both these. Madhyamika Karika of Nagarjuna and also Mandukya Karika, the Gaudapada Karika, the Gaudapada. Same language. But Gaudapada eventually pointed out something that is transcendental, that is the absolute reality, that beyond perception, beyond mind and beyond everything, beyond any kind of verbalization. It's all beyond verbalization. That idea used by Nagarjuna to describe Shunya. But same idea used by Gaudapada to explain Brahman. You see, he says, Shunya even cannot be called Shunya. Shunya cannot be called Ashunya. If you call any name, it's no more Shunya. Gaudapada and Shankaracharya said the Brahman is beyond any kind of verbalization, any kind of cognition, any kind of definition or description. Then if you call it Brahman, that's a name, then it becomes limited because it becomes defined. The moment you define, you call it a name, and you say it cannot have any name, it cannot be described, it's a contradiction. So in Advaita, a higher philosophy, Gaudapada, later Shankara's Bhasha also says, Brahman is only used in the sense that it is all-pervading, all-expanding and indescribable, which is present in everyone as an immanent divine spark. It's also all-encompassing, all-accommodating, all-pervading. Now, that the word brings the dhatu can be interpreted to mean all this. Atman and Brahman can be used. So, Brahman is not a name of Brahman. The George is a name of a George. Brahman is not a name of Brahman. Brahman doesn't have an identity card with the Brahman. No, I am Brahman. No. It is only a word that we use. That's why, along with using all these words, Shankaracharya says it beyond all words. That's why Nagarjuna says it is not Shunya. It's not Ashunya. It's not Shunya, it's not non-Shunya. I think I have the example, if I remember correctly, in Chandrakirti's commentary on this book. Give the example, suppose you use a kind of Ayurvedic root to get rid of a stomach problem, then eventually you have to get rid of the root also. The root can create serious problems. So finally you have to get the root that has cured the disease, that also should be removed. So Shunya, to be called Shunya, cannot be called Shunya. If it is called Shunya, it will no more be Shunya. So Shunya here means something indescribable. Again, you have to use a word. Word is in philosophy, which is below experience level. That comes at the end of the Chatussutri Bhashya, Shankaracharya says, Aham Brahmasmi Mahavakya. When you reach that experience dimension of Aham Brahmasmi, that I am Brahman, that experience, then that statement itself is irrelevant. You go beyond the statement when you reach the experience indicated by the statement. So that was striking similarity. So if you study Advaita and then you study this Nagarjuna philosophy and then read the text, without reading something about the philosophy, if you read the text, it can be confusing because language is very, very simple. But the philosophy is so profound and abstract. Unfortunately, in modern times, the philosophy is so childish and ridiculous and laughable. But to hide the superficiality of philosophy, they use highly complicated words. That's the idea. That's the trend in modern times. Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Swami.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. Shay, you're next. Good to see you.
Good evening, Maharaj.
Yeah. Thank you.
My question is about, you mentioned at the beginning of class that there was some connection between Patanjali's Yoga Sutra and some Buddhists believed.
Yeah.
And I was reflecting on some of your earlier lectures, and I remembered that Patanjali does use this word shunya in one verse.
Yeah.
The final verse.
Yeah.
It's Purushartha Shunyanam Gunanam.
Yeah.
And it goes on and on about the gunas going into this voidness. I believe that is what the meaning is.
Yeah.
Do you think that is that a similar use of the word shunya, or is it a different setting? And is there an influence maybe between the two philosophies in relation to that verse?
Okay, you have to be very careful. The word shunya has got a technical meaning and implication in Nagarjuna's philosophy, and also in any system of Buddhist philosophy especially. The shunya is a simple word in Sanskrit language. It means devoid of, empty of. So, in many of the slokas and statements, including Patanjali's yoga system, shunya will be used in its much less technical, ordinary language, the meaning that you get in the dictionary. But in Nagarjuna's system, the word shunya has got a very profound philosophical, metaphysical implication. They should not be confused. So the word like delete, D-E-L-E-T, in information technology, delete means you remove something. Mouse can mean the small, tiny instrument. But if you read the word mouse and then you are looking for a living creature, it has a definite meaning in so far as a computer operator is concerned. That meaning is irrelevant in normal language, where you are talking about a small tiny creature. Like that, shunya has got a profound metaphysical significance in Nagarjuna's philosophy, or in Buddhism in general, of course, in general. And even Indian philosophical system, because Buddhism is a very important part of Indian philosophical evolution. But that word shunya is used in hundreds of Sanskrit classical works. It only means devoid of, empty of, that's all. Okay, that should not be, okay, that, yeah. And you mentioned something about this Yoga Sutra.
Yeah.
So, the only point is, you see, the word samskara, which is one of the links of this 12 link, the praditya samudpada, the formative actions, volitional actions driven by ignorance of our own true nature, and also the accumulated tendencies and impressions that are created by our own actions and stored up in our mental system, which prompt us towards certain things, certain ideas and actions and so on. Now, this samskara is the framework. It is an important part of these five aggregates. The five aggregates are, that is form, rupa, feeling, vedana, perception, samjna, then mental formations, tendencies, impressions, samskara. So these samskaras are very, very important. They link all the other four together. And then we become aware of this, that is vijnana. So all these five together represent different aspects of human experience, internal and external. Now, once you understand these, you also understand they are mutually connected, they are interdependent. If they are interdependent, then they cannot be permanent. So that's why they are essentially impermanent. So the impermanence is the foundational idea of shunya. Everything is empty, shunya, of inherent existence because they are interdependent. They are interconnected. They don't have independent, inherent existence. So they are empty of inherent existence. And samskaras are very, very important. So the idea of samskara, in fact, all of this, samjna, vijnana, samskara, all these are important in yoga system also. There are slight differences because in Buddhism, it is closely linked to the fundamental truth of the impermanence of all our experiences in the past life, in this life, in future life. Because they are all linked together by the 12 links. And samskaras are central to this 12 link phenomenon change. And if you don't have samskaras, then you don't have trishna. You don't have aversion. You don't have desire for certain things, aversion to certain things. And then you don't have the kind of what you call the upadana, clinging to objects. And then you don't have any kind of sensations, vedana. You don't come in contact with different things, sparsha. All those things are practically inconceivable without samskara. Samskaras are important thing. And the samskara, though Patanjali himself uses this word only in certain context, but the psychological significance of samskara is brought up by Vyasa in his commentary. Patanjali uses the word, parinama, tapa, samskara, dukkha. So, samskara dukkha, the word is used by Patanjali, one of the sutras. That is, I think, 15th sutra of sadhana pada. So, samskara is coming there, but samskaras and vrittis are interlinked. So, the psychological significance of samskara is emphasized in Yoga Sutras. But how those samskaras cause your suffering? Again, suffering means what? Being born, going through enjoyments and suffering, which together is called suffering. It's not grieving, suffering the ordinary English language. It means you're going through this impermanent experience. So that's called suffering. And this leads to next life. All this happened because of samskaras. Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is clear to me.
Yes, maybe somebody else has any doubt because we are coming.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there is another question, but I do suspect that Shay has a clarification of his question.
You need any clarification? Oh, please go ahead. Yeah.
Well, my other question is, so we've talked about many different philosophies in this course, in this Sunday course, and you've talked about more Dvaita also. There's Lord Chaitanya, there's Madhvacharya, and You said that Nagarjuna and Gaudapada, that actually like the destination is pretty much the same, but maybe the philosophy is slightly different.
Yeah.
It almost feels like their philosophies are closer to one another than Advaita is with some of the other Vedanta philosophies that you have spoken of in this course, where even the destination in a pure bhakti school is a bit different from Advaita. And I'm wondering if that is a clear observation.
It is absolutely correct. The reason is, in Gaudapada's system, which is a prelude to Shankara's philosophy, there is no reference at all to a God idea. That's very important in bhakti schools. God is a very important subject in topic of discussion in all bhakti schools, all non-Advaitic schools of orthodox system, especially Vedanta system. God is very important. Now, Gaudapada never even mentions the idea of worshipping or praying to a God. Now, of course, Nagarjuna, there is no, we can't imagine Nagarjuna ever mentioning God. Now, if you come to Shankaracharya, in Shankaracharya's commentaries, except Gita Bhashya, Gita commentary, the Upanishad commentaries and in Brahma Sutras, there are differences in Brahma Sutras where Shankaracharya his idea of God is very profound, very similar to some of the bhakti schools. But that's not the supreme aspect of Advaita philosophy, even in Shankara. But remember, he was the writer of the most marvelous devotional poetry in Sanskrit, addressing different gods and goddesses. So what you said is absolutely correct. The idea of praying to a God is very important in bhakti schools, but that is not even mentioned by Gaudapada, who is an Advaitin philosopher. And you have to remember, Buddhist schools, the 4 schools of Buddhism, Sautrantika, Vaibhashika, Vijnanavada, Shunyavada, they all belong to the 6 schools of Nastika or heterodox systems, which do not advocate the idea of a God. In the Indian materialistic schools, Charvaka, in the Jaina schools, and the 4 schools of Buddhism, there is no place for God. So naturally, Nagarjuna has no need to mention. But Gaudapada also never mentions God idea. So this is a very important thing to remember. So in that sense, it is so philosophical and metaphysical. I think that's why Advaita is the foundation of the universality, all acceptance, all accommodating idea. Whatever tradition you belong to, or if you are not tradition at all, if you become a good human being, you can be Vedanti. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Christine has been patiently waiting to ask her question.
Hello, Swamiji. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good. It's not so much a question, maybe as a comment. I'm kind of thinking about Shunya and Maya, and also thinking of a number line, negative and positive, and the concept of 0. And 0 is a very important number.
Yeah.
And 0 really isn't nothing. And interestingly enough, 0 divided by 0 isn't 1. I mean, they call it undefined, which seems more Vedanta, and it just sort of reinforces the Vedanta perspective mathematically, is I guess what I'm saying.
True.
I guess I'm having a Pythagoras moment or something. But
maybe the idea of the infinity.
Yeah.
The idea of infinity, the highest transcendental concept that is implied here. Those of you who are interested, you can read books. Some of them are available. There is a great school of mathematics which has been taken up by many universities in the US and also Europe. It's called the Kerala School of Mathematics. From 11th century to about 16th century, there were a number of mathematicians who lived in India. In that part of India, it's called not Kerala. So a number of mathematicians lived and they wrote some wonderful books. So I'm myself not a mathematician, but I know that in many of the IITs, Indian Institute of Technology, the highest Indian institutes training engineers and IT professionals and engineers and other skilled specialists, they have taken up the study of this school. Their manuscripts are being preserved, being studied and taught. You can perhaps, if you are interested, I have no time to go beyond what I already know a little. So those manuscripts are there, they're being subjected to discussion and studies. Kerala School of Mathematics, Indian School of Mathematics, you find. There are many ancient manuscripts. So some of their books are being taught and done a lot of research in many European universities also. You can just explore that. I'm myself not a mathematician. Maybe I can't give more information than what I did. So they have done some work on this zero signifying the idea of the infinity. Zero indicates infinity. Zero was discovered in India in ancient times, much earlier, much more ancient times. So, anyway, this is a subject which you can discuss with eminent mathematicians who maybe some of our own viewers may be eminent mathematicians. Okay, thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, thank you.
Tonight you rescued Nagarjuna from misunderstanding.
Yeah.
As a nihilist.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, absolutely. Openly he says, Shunya is not Uchcheda. Shunya is not annihilation. And still you make him, the exponent of the philosophy of annihilation or emptiness and nothingness. So the great nothingness, sometimes you find people writing, people giving lectures on those subjects. Anyway, that's a different subject. So thank you everyone who took deep interest and asked questions with the patience. Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you.